In terms of, I mean, yeah, we cover women are 50% of our population, so they definitely get covered in many regards, like, doing a story on, advancements or new guidelines for new moms, having babies, how long should babies stay, in the, with mom before they get moved to their own bed. We've covered, all kinds of. I'm trying to think. I always have trouble thinking back because you do 1 to 2 stories a day, day in, day out. It's sort of like it just becomes a giant blur. I'm trying to think. We've definitely, I'm just thinking stuff we've covered recently, like the Gomeshi trial. It was sort of had a big women's issues focus because it was centered around women coming forward and claiming, that they had been wronged by this man, and then they were sort of shown to not be truthful, and then it sort of brought into the light, is this not discriminating against women, but is this going to make women not want to come forward now because they got grilled in trial? So women's issues was a big part of that trial for sure.
Right. And do you think that was covered differently than it would have been 15 or 20 years ago? Do you think that's been an advancement?
15 and 20, yeah. I think with each sort of, over time we've come to understand that more women are definitely more empowered than they've ever been, and with social media, women are able to really speak their minds and maybe get their message across even easier. So for sure, I mean, I think I would be curious to think how we would have covered it 15 years ago. I think it definitely got the coverage it did, and the dialogue continued because we're just becoming more enlightened to different groups and that sort of things.
Mm-hmm. And you've interviewed Oprah. I saw that on your bio. So what was that experience like?
That was fabulous. I've always sort of admired her. I thought it was cool that she was a journalist to begin with, and I've always admired her interviewing style and the different interviews she was able to get, and the information that she was able to pull out of people. So I've sort of always wanted to see how she asks questions. And so, as you can imagine, it was probably one of the most nerve-wracking interviews of my life because I'm interviewing someone who's very good at interviewing.
Right.
So, and it was a case of she was in town for an event and we only had so much time, and so I thought I'll probably only be able to get a few questions in. And so then what 2 questions do you ask? And as it turned out, I ended up being way more nervous than I needed to be because she's just a lovely human being, and not only did she answer my questions, but she even offered up more than I expected, which I thought was really great. She's like, you know what, here, you'll probably like this, and then she added a few little tidbits that made for great TV. So it was a wonderful experience. I think when you always want to be fair, you always want to be balanced to the best of your abilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think today, how you cover things, you got to be extra vigilant in that regard with your facts and showing all sides, because you're just held to account more. I mean, your story doesn't just air on the news and then it's gone. I mean, people can PVR it, they can repost stuff on social media. CTV Toronto's posting stuff online, and so you gotta make sure that you're at the top of your game journalistically. I think now there's no, gosh, it kills me to think that there was a time when women couldn't even be on the news. I mean, it was just for men. That is so done now. And in fact, our newsroom, when you take a look around, all my bosses are women. My producer, the news director, woman. Her boss is a woman. Her boss's boss is a woman. We've got more female reporters than male reporters. I mean, we've certainly got that side of things covered. But it's also important. What I like about, particularly for you, because you guys are reporting on women's issues, it's an asset to be a woman reporting on that, because you have a perspective that, as much as a man could try to get, he can't get. He's a guy. He looks at the world through that lens. So, me being a mom now, while I was nervous sort of stepping out of the news game to go on maternity leave, I've come back with a whole new perspective on the world because I'm a mom. I didn't know what that was like, and now I know that there are sort of stories out there that women would be interested in that maybe before, not having a child, I didn't think were a big deal. But then when you're a mom, you worry about their health and all that kind of stuff. So it's, I feel more enlightened being a woman. But certainly, you've got to try to be as balanced as humanly possible. So it can be a good thing looking at the world through a female lens, but you also got to recognize that that is how you're looking at the world. So you have to try to be as objective as possible. This job isn't just my dream job, but it's sort of a privilege, and I can inform people and reach people in a way that I probably couldn't just as someone who doesn't show up on TV.
And I know you obviously report on a lot of general news, like you were saying, 2 stories a day kind of a thing. But in terms of women's issues, or even looking back at that Ghomeshi trial, do you see women's issues being covered differently in the future? Or do you think that we're kind of reaching a place where the coverage is good, and why?
I think we could always improve. We don't shy away from that. I just don't think when we're in a story meeting, we're thinking we need to get more women's stories out there. I mean, for the way we look at it, women's stories, men's stories, all stories are, valid. But I can certainly see, I think by virtue of having more women in leadership, who understand what matters to people out there, you're going to get more coverage along those lines, for sure. The Ghomeshi trial was sort of a gold mine for women's issues, for sure. Because what happened is all the victims in that case, the case, he ended up, being found not guilty of those charges. And the women were made to feel in the end that that the system failed them, but then they didn't make a proper case in court. The judge just didn't believe them. And so it sort of brings up all kinds of questions about women coming forward, and it's just a can of worms, that trial. My co-anchor Ken is amazing. The whole Trump election, women, especially because you had the first, woman running for president, and that was sort of, questions about whether, she was right for the job and how being a woman played into it. That was a big one. In terms of women's issues, I think the 2 big ones, and props to my colleague Ken for reminding me the most obvious, the U.S. election. Even though we're here in Canada, we highlighted that a lot. And Hillary Clinton being a woman, maybe having people not like her because she was a woman and didn't think she was fit for the job. That was certainly a big one. And, a lot of women's groups coming out in support of her, and a lot of women's movements, just a few weeks before the election, women were wearing pantsuits in sort of solidarity with her. So, that got a lot of people talking, and as much as she didn't win, this is a woman who was that close to getting the keys to the White House. It would have been the first woman ever. So, certainly some strides there, and regardless if you like her or Trump, it doesn't matter. There will be women out there who will now think that it is possible for them to become president, whereas when you don't have someone to look up to, it can be tricky. There will be a time when women look and say, hey, it won't be weird to have a woman president at all.